Hello everyone, this is Dragon Veils. I hope y'all are doing well. Welcome back to my channel, and this time around I'm going to go over the Amazing Digital Circus, going over the most sympathetic characters on this list that do deserve a bit of a hug, especially based on everything that we've seen so far. And it's best to do this video now because we are only just about 3 months away from the final episode of the Amazing Digital Circus, and probably the last heaping amount of pain we'll ever witness. Without further ado, let's begin. While with Cade, personal feelings for him aside, I can understand why he could have some sympathy. He was an AI who was created with one job and one job alone, being creative and making new adventures for the people who come by. However, the origins of his being are definitely becoming borderline disturbing each time you watch him. And even though he's struggling to understand human emotions, because he's also still trying to find his directive, it doesn't exactly help with the situation. He's practically the Frankenstein's monster, and he has put a lot of the other characters on this list through the emotional ringer. Again, he's certainly sympathetic in the case that he can't control of how he was born and made of what he was supposed to do, but his maltreatment and constant torturing is where the sympathy kind of stops at that point. So when we're introduced to Jax, he comes across as a very hardened jerk who likes to yank everyone's chain whenever possible and pulls off mean jokes whenever he gets the chance, especially when it comes to poor Gangle. However, when we get further down the episodes, he becomes a little less joyful and becomes neurotic, scared, practically hyperventilating because the reality slowly creeping in. I mean, it is pretty unfortunate that he has to go through these sorts of emotions, and because he lost a friend of Ribbit and Cosmo, he becomes very guarded because whenever someone is connecting with him, they wind up becoming abstracted. So this hurts him a lot, more than he would like to admit. And in episode 7, it's pretty clear that he has a strong phobia about trying to be sincere towards people, about his feelings, not only just towards Pomni and the people he cares about, but I'm pretty sure it might have happened in real life too. And it seems like, according to some fans, he's carrying a huge amount of guilt, now realizing that the Amazing Digital Circus was and never will be a game. With Gangles, one of the things that make us feel a little bit bad for her is the fact that she's always bullied by Jax constantly. It does not help that in a lot of these adventures, her mask winds up broken. The comedy mask anyway. So she's always having to deal with these emotions, having to maintain her comedy mask, although she's mostly sad a good chunk of the series. But as it progresses, maybe by episode 4, she starts to take a turn for the better and becomes a little bit more of a happy person, even when she's not wearing her comedy mask, which definitely weirded Jax out a lot. But it doesn't change the fact that she's just one of those characters you sympathize with because she's not only just constantly bullied, but she once had a dream that nowadays feels so relatable that so many people want to have, like work as an artist or work with data or computers. But now, with everything that's happening in terms of job hunting and such, it definitely feels like it makes Gangle's situation more relatable. Zooble is grumpy, but yet one of the most caring characters in the Amazing Digital Circus. While they don't show the same level of care as Ragatha does, when they do have their moments, you could definitely see of when they support the other characters, or in this case, always was there for Gangles. And understandably, as we go further down the show, we learn more about why Zubul would never want to participate in Kane's adventures. It's not just because they're very grumpy and antisocial, it's because they're flat out dangerous. In terms of that, it's understandable of why Zubul will want to hide or keep their distance away from Kane whenever possible, and sometimes winds up getting torn apart. It doesn't exactly help that poor Zubul suffers from a body dysmorphia, a mental condition where they're not very comfortable with their own bodies. So they would always have to change their parts constantly. Over time, though, they do seem to open up to the other characters and feel a bit more comfortable and open, even when it comes to Gangle in general. But you do feel bad when they do have their moments of weakness, especially towards episode 8, where they're just ready to cry their eyes out after everything that's happened. When we're first introduced to Ragatha, she kind of comes across like Joy from Inside Out. Cheerful, bubbly, doesn't seem to let anything get to her too hard. But we soon learn that she's lived a very difficult life, having a very domineering mother who pushed her around a lot, which is why she resembles a doll in the first place. But what makes it even sadder is because her being cheerful is probably the closest thing that keeps her a little sane, or tries to help her cope with the situation she's stuck in. And when we get to see of how much he's beaten around throughout the series, you do feel real bad for her. And despite all that, she definitely is one of the strong ones of the Amazing Digital Circus for as long as she could. And you have to admit, it was admirable when she joined in for Pomni when she calls out Kane. But let's see what happens by then. Right from the get-go, you feel so bad for Pomni, and what does she have to endure throughout the entire show? She does get better, but when she started the beginning of a show, she was hysterical and scared, and understandably why, considering the fact that 1 minute she's in one location, the next she's popped into the existence of a circus with a new identity, and now she has to try to work around these adventures and crazy stuff that keeps happening all around. And third episode, it was a miracle that she didn't exactly go into abstraction at that point. I mean, she got possessed, for crying out loud. But the reason why I put her in number 3 is because her character starts to turn for the better. Namely, she starts taking charge, becoming more empathetic to the rest of the gang, and tries to reach out to them whenever possible. Even going as far as calling out Kane on all of the stuff that he has done so far into the show, which was not very easy to do, and it was risky, but it was pretty much worth it at the end of the episode. Out of all the characters in the Amazing Digital Circus, Kinger suffered the most, and many of you could understand why by the time we reach episode 8. He was the longest in the humans that lived in the circus. He lost his wife to abstraction, had to cope with Kane's insanity, and on top of that, the only way he could maintain it was when he was in complete and utter darkness. And despite all that, he still tries to be there for the gang, tries to be a team player for everyone involved, comforting Pomni, comforting Ragatha, just trying to be a very good person. And he was also the programmer, or one of the programmers that created Kane. So you do feel bad that he never counted on this kind of escalation. And I wouldn't say that it was his fault. No one knew that this AI was going to practically abduct everyone and put them into this crazy digital hell. So these are my thoughts, and I'd like to hear yours. Who do you think has suffered most out of all of this? And what do you want me to cover next? especially because Digital Circus is now going to end. Do a like and subscribe. This is Dragon Video signing off.